Good evening, everybody. This is Pedro. How is everybody doing? I hope everybody is just fine. I need to know if I am live. If you can hear me, let me know. I need somebody to verify that on WhatsApp or through the site that you can hear me. I'll start at 9:05. Which is in 4 or 5 minutes. I'm going to wait here just for a little bit. So if anybody can hear my voice, let me know. I am not the genius of the internet. So we'll start here in just a minute. Again, let me know if you're having problems or if you can't hear me. I will send a message to some of my students. We'll wait here for 4 more minutes. I know last time I got off to a late start, just a little late. So I'm normally not on time. Sorry, I'm becoming more Brazilian as time goes by. So we will wait 3 more minutes. So at 9:05, we will get started. Get started. Ficamos começados. Estranho, né? Yeah. So just 3 more minutes. Make sure everybody is here. And we have a message here from, who is it? It is Rodrigo. Rodrigo, how are you? I'm sure you're just fine. Okay. So we are going to start here in 2 minutes. Two minutes. We will start in 2 minutes. So bear with me, guys. Just 2 more minutes and we will start. This technology is getting easier. It's getting easier. As you can probably see, there's a site called StreamYard I'm using that does everything for me. I just log in and it's too easy. Fácil demais. Recommend using that. So 1 minute, I will start the share screen and we will get started. 1 more minute, everybody. And a few seconds. It's almost 9:05. Okay, we're almost ready. I'm going to wait for that officially. Okay, it is now 9:05. I'm going to share screen, guys, and we'll get started. Let's see here. Alrighty, there we go. And I will go to the beginning. There it says we will start at 9:05. I am finally on time. Alrighty, guys, 9:05. Let's get started. Here, let me hide this real quickly. All right, let's go. All right, I called this presentation a matter of time. And as we learned a couple of weeks ago, matter can mean, it means it's not important, or it is important. Matter is the root for material. So it's an important part of integral part of something. So can I take a vacation next week? It doesn't matter. In this case, it's not important. So a matter of time can be un asunto of time in this case. So it's a matter of time. Stuff. First, we got to take care of some stuff here. We have the bold is going to be the new text. Italics will be the prepositions. And asterisk will be the adverbs with LEY no final. Then we have the red letters: any, some, no, and every. All these words that have these words, all of these words will be highlighted in red. And then we have vocabulary. Now this word we looked at, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago, perform. Now perform doesn't exist as a verb in Portuguese. Now you have performance in Portuguese, which is the same as performance, desempeño, in Portuguese also, same in English. But perform is realizar, but also entreter. It can be entreter, but in this case, we're going to use realizar. Heal is curar. And then sing, sang, sung. Now these words that are highlighted in bold, negrito, are words that we use more often, mais frequentemente. So sing, sang, sung. This is cantar. And as you know, singer is cantor. And song is música. Uma música, duas músicas, those are songs. S-E-O-N-E-G. Então, seem. Now, seem is parecer. And we will look at this a little bit more daqui in a few minutes. Separate, you know this one, separar. Reveal, you should know this one. Revelar. And then throw, through, thrown. Now this is jogar. Is usually this movimentação. So throw the ball, jogar the ball, a bola, throw, through, thrown, and then the opposite is catch, caught. Now we use catch and throw differently in Portuguese and English. Pegar, catch the ball, but also we catch fish. So I guess it's pegar peixe in Portuguese. When you go fishing, you catch fish. Draw, drew, drawn. Now, some of you know this, especially Rodrigo. Draw is desenhar, but draw is also to pull toward you, to pull to you, something to you. Can also be atrair. So something is atraindo, attracting something, or you're attracting, or you are actively pulling something to you. So, and then we have end up. Now this is acabar, and it's a strange phrasal verb, not a strange phrasal verb. It's not. It doesn't combine well with English. So I drove to Guarulhos and I'm sorry. I drove to Campos do Jordão, and I passed Campo do Jordão. I wasn't paying attention, and I ended up in Rio de Janeiro. So eu acabei. Yesterday, I didn't have money, and I ended up eating at home. So I didn't go to Burger King. I wanted to go to Burger King, but I didn't have money. So I ended up eating at home. Então, hit is one of three verbs, or two verbs. We'll use two verbs: bater ou atingir. So atingir, seu carro, hit your car. It's one time. Now, bater in English can also mean beat. But in English, we have hit and beat. Hit is one time, and beat is many times. So you probably heard this, but my wife doesn't beat me with the panela. She only hits me with the panela. One time. I get one time per day. Então, punch. This is socar. Socar. Punch. Punch. Struggle is lutar. Lutar. And struggle can be, lutar can also mean in MEMEA, lutar. But struggle, we don't use it in that context. Struggle is something you have difficulty. You have difficulty. A gente tem dificuldades. So I struggle with verb conjugation in Portuguese. Why? There are 60 verb conjugations in Portuguese. Então, those are the verbs. A few verbs that are they are irregular. Then we have make a living, and make a living is ganhar a vida. Ganhar a vida. Make a living. It's a little strange expression, but almost the same thing in Portuguese. Ganhar, make a living in this case. Maturity is maturidade. Maturity. It's strange. The verb in English is mature, and in Portuguese, mature is amadurecer. Bananas mature, amadurecer. And people mature. So, but the process is maturity. Então, sign. Sign is one of two things. Sign is placa, ou sinal. Sinal. One of the two. But they don't. Again, this is a word that doesn't combine well because you have a placa on your car. Cars have placas. These are plates, not signs. But the placa na rua, na rodovia, there are many signs there. Então, smile, sorriso. Sorriso, smile for the camera. And see. See is mar. And then we have twin. Twin is gêmeo. Everybody has a twin in the world. Infelizmente, I have a twin. No, I'm joking. Então, able. Able is capaz. And we will look at capaz later, not today. I promised last week we would look at able, but it can be capaz. It can also be maybe conseguir. And then we have shore. Shore, according to Google, is costa. Now, it's a little different. Coast, we have the word coast, and we will look at this in a few minutes. But we have the sand, the beach, the shore, and the coast. And there are almost four different things. They are four different things with small differences. Base, adivinha, of course, that's base. And partner, socio. There is a program on the History Channel. I recommend it. It's called O Sócio. In English, that's the partner, but the program is called something else. I think it's The Prophet. And we will look at profit here in just a little bit. There it is. Profit is can be lucro, or spelled differently, com PH, profit is profeta. So, o mesmo som, mas duas palavras diferentes. Neste caso, profit is lucro, the other profit is profeta. And then the difference between and among. Now, between is usually two things. And among is entre tres o más. So between two, I'm sitting between Rodrigo and Danielle. So I'm sitting among many people. So, and one more here we have obvious, that is obvio. Então, now what is time? What is time? Oh, we never stop to think about it. We mark time, minutes, seconds, hours, days, years. Sometimes years feel like seconds. Sometimes seconds feel like years. Então, now Albert Einstein said the past, the present, and the future all happen at the same time. Ao mesmo tempo. At the same time. At the same time. And with time, I agree. Com o tempo, eu concordo. I agree with this. Now, I agree especially in Portuguese. In Portuguese, well, you have eu te ligo amanhã. So my students know this. It's confusing. It is incorrect. It is not correct. Eu te ligarei in Portuguese. But welcome to Portuguese, Pedro, and welcome to English, because we have our peculiaridades. So the other one is nos brincamos, for example. Nos brincamos agora ou no passado? Nós temos que, we have to identify tempo presente or tempo passado with this verb conjugation. Então, only our perspective of time changes. And this is very true. Our perspective changes. It is called maturity. There's that word maturity, maturidade, and it takes time. Maturity takes time. It doesn't happen in a moment or in an instant. It takes time, and it takes many processes. There are many processes involved. Então, and last week we looked at a perfect example. Who was he? He was Peter. We looked at the story of Peter. Very confusing person. Now, facts about Peter. Let's look at the facts. What was his original name? And his original name was Simon. Where was he from? Well, he was born in Bethsaida, and he lived in Capernaum. So this is around the same area, and this is true. If you were born in one area, you stayed there. You didn't move. So not very common, but some people it was common. But if you wanted to make a living, ganhar vida, you stayed where you were. Então, so what did he do for a living? It's a little different than make a living. So what did he do for a living before he met Jesus? What did he do? Well, he was a fisherman. Pedro, what happened to did? That's verbo da ação, tempo passado. Yeah. Vida real. Neste caso, what did he do for a living? It can be he did fishing. He did this or that. Or he fished. I'm sorry, he did fishing. He fished for a living. Can be. It's not common. He was a fisherman. What was his job after the crucifixion? And his job was apostle. He was an apostle. And more about Peter. Did he write any books in the Bible? Yes, he did. He wrote 1st and 2nd Peter, and maybe the Gospel of Mark. We learned last time. So maybe Peter was the writer of the Gospel of Mark. We will never know. His name, nobody's name is attached, anexado or escrito, in lugar. So maybe the Gospel of Mark. Now, was he married? Yes, he was married. We know this because Jesus healed his mother-in-law in Luke chapter 4, I believe. So Jesus healed, curou a sogra dele. Jesus healed his mother-in-law. Now, why did Peter deny Jesus? Porque Pedro negou Jesus. Why did Peter deny Jesus? Well, that one's easy. Because Jesus healed his mother-in-law. So there's Pedro, Peter, there's good news and there's bad news. No, I'm just joking. Então, last time. Now, we did a little trivia last time, and tonight we're going to do some more. Now, this isn't a lot more, just a few questions. We're going to do a little more trivia, some more trivia. What is the longest book in the Bible? Is it Jeremiah, Genesis, Isaiah, Psalms, or Acts? What is the longest book in the Bible? Well, time is up. Let's take a look. What is the longest book in the Bible? Oh, it depends. It depends. In English, the answer is D, Psalms. But in Hebrew, the answer is A, Jeremiah. Fascinating. This is fascinating. Então, who wrote the book of John? Who wrote the book of John? Was it John? Was it Lazarus? Was it Luke? Or was it Matthew? Oh, one more. Paul. Who wrote the book of John? Então, now tradition says that it was John, but we don't know for sure. However, it possibly was Lazarus. And if you know the New Testament, you know the story of Lazarus. Jesus raised Lazarus, and there is a good argument, argumento for Lazarus. Very good. I'm not very good argument for Lazarus, or maybe another writer. We don't know. Well, the good news is, guys, I have a picture of the Apostle John with me, and here he is. Oh, hey, there's Silvio Santos. He's talking to Silvio Santos. I can't believe it. They are contemporaries. Hey, and Silvio Santos is carrying a book. Maybe he wrote the book of John. We don't know. Anyhow, now to the text. John 21:7. But first, we're going to look at the end of chapter 20. Final de chapter 20. And here it is. It's a little detour. Sorry, guys, I didn't highlight negritar, this word detour. Detour is desvio. Nahua, or nuhumo. So a little detour. So we're going to look at the end of chapter 30 first, chapter 20, before we look at chapter 21. And here it is. Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples. There's that word signs, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. All right. Here it is in Portuguese. Jesus realizou na presença dos seus discípulos muitos outros sinais miraculosos que não estão registrados neste livro, mas estes foram escritos para que vocês creiam que Jesus é o Cristo, o Filho de Deus, e crendo tenham vida em seu nome. Então, this book has two purposes. Remember, purposes, propósitos. Propósitos. It has two purposes. First one is you may believe. You may believe. Now, certeza, you may believe. Neste caso, poder. You can believe. Not you will believe, but you may believe. It depends on you. And that you may have life in his name. So there's two purposes. You may believe is one thing. You may have life in his name is another thing. So we need to take a look at these two things. Now, was John 20 the end of the book? To me, it seems like it. That sounds like the end of the book. But there's 21 chapters. John 21 is the end of the book. What happened? Well, seems like versus looks like. Let's take a look. Desvio. We're going to detour. Have a detour. They are similes. They are similes. And similes is not smiles, okay? So what is the difference between seems like and looks like? Now, looks like is visual. And Pedro, it looks like you need a haircut. This is true. I have not cut my hair in 6 months, I believe. I needed a haircut before this lockdown, quarantine. So I need a haircut. Now, seems like is a perception. It seems like Pedro needs a vacation, and this is true. Pedro needs a vacation to somewhere, algún lugar, anywhere, fora de casa, out of the house. I need to get away. I need a vacation. I need to go travel somewhere. Então, or about similes. Remember, they're not smiles, okay? They're not smiles. It looks like smiles. Similes, smiles. Okay. They are comparisons. And similes usually use the word like. For example, I sing like Roberto Carlos. This is true. I sing like Roberto Carlos. This Roberto Carlos, okay? Então, and I play football like this Roberto Carlos. So he has one leg. All right. There is another book. Sorry, I forgot. There is another book like this in the New Testament. Which book is it? Which? Remember, selección limitada, limited selection. The New Testament has 27 books, so it's a big selection. It works, though. Which book is it? It is the book of Romans. It was written in 4 sections. It was written in 4 sections, 1 to 8, 9 to 11, 12 to 15, and chapter 16. So 4 sections. The last verse of Romans 15, before the Romans 16, now the God of peace be with you all. Amen. And to me, this seems like the end of the book. Well, what about the other 2 sections? Well, the last verse of Romans 11, for from him and through him and to him are all things. Through, to, though, they're all the same. So for him and through him and to him are all things. To him be glory forever. Para sempre. Amen. It seems like the end of the book too. Então, the last sentence of Romans 8, nothing in all creation can separate us from God's love for us in Christ Jesus our Lord. This seems like the end of the book also. Boy, now this book, Romans, and all the books, remember they were written by humans, and they did not have computers. So they wrote on paper like everybody. There's nothing special about the process. They didn't sit at the table and just write one book and let God guide the pen. No, God inspired them. Inspiró. He inspired them, and they wrote the book. So here, Romans is written in 4 parts. And John ended in chapter 20. It seems like it ended in chapter 20, but there was one more chapter, which is what we're going to look at today. And here, finally, we have the text. John 20, verses 1 through 7. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. He revealed himself this way. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 more of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. Then they said to him, we will go with you. They went out and immediately entered the boat, but that night they caught nothing. When the morning came, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, Children, do you have any fish? Children, do you have any fish? They answered him, No. He said to them, Throw the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they threw it, and now they were not able to draw it in because of the abundance of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, It is the Lord. It is the Lord. Então, let's look at that in Portuguese. Então, let's see here. Let me open this up just briefly here. And what happened? Here it is. John 20, 1 through 7. Depois disso, Jesus apareceu novamente aos seus discípulos, à margem do mar de Tiberíades. Então, foi assim. Estavam juntos Simão Pedro, Tomé, chamado Dídimo, Natanael de Cana de Galileia, os filhos de Zebedeu e 2 outros discípulos. Vou pescar, disse-lhes Simão Pedro. E eles disseram, nós vamos com você. Eles foram e entraram no barco, mas naquela noite não pegaram nada. Ao amanhecer, Jesus estava na praia, mas os discípulos não o reconheceram. Ele lhes perguntou, Filhos, vocês têm algo para comer? Não responderam eles. Ele disse, lancem a rede do lado direito do barco e vocês encontrarão. Eles a lançaram e não conseguiam recolher a rede. Tal era a quantidade de peixes. O discípulo a quem Jesus amava disse a Pedro, é o Senhor. Então, verse 1. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. He revealed himself this way. So after this, now this is after these events in chapter 20. We won't look at those events, but it happened after the events of chapter 20. And also 28:16. That says, Then the 11 disciples, 11 discípulos, went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. Para a montanha onde Deus disse, falou, eles ir, desculpa. But then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. So Jesus told them to go there, and they went there. And now it isn't immediately after something. So I ate breakfast this morning. After this, I watched television. Can be, but it's usually something there can be a gap, vão entre as duas coisas. I finished high school. Eu terminei com ensino médio. After this, I went to college. Eu fui à faculdade. Então, It's months later. This is months later, so it can be an extended time. Now, more about Galilee. Now, Jesus used the region for base. You know that word base, base. Ele usou a região por uma base, espero feminino, palavra feminina. Então, Samaria. Remember, Samaria is between Galilee and Judea. And Judea is where Jerusalem is. And Jerusalem, the Judea and Samaria, remember, they did not like each other. They were enemies, inimigos mesmo. And Galilee is to the north. We will look at that in just a second. So here it is, Galilee is between. So, entre duas coisas, Judea e Samaria. Então, Sea of Tiberias is also called the Sea of Galilee. There are 4 names for the Sea of Galilee in the Bible, and here it is. Here's the map. So we have Judea, where we have Bethlehem. You see that to the bottom, para baixo. See 3 cities, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, and Jericho. So that Jerusalem is the headquarters, the hedge. And then above, acima, is Samaria. So that's where the Samaritans lived. And above that is Galilee. And you see the Sea of Galilee. So Galilee was farther, mais longe que Samaria. So the Judeans didn't like Samaria, but the Galileans, the people from Galilee, were more like gauchos to paulistanos. They're unrefined, desrefinados, refinados. I don't know, but they were not refined. They were simple people, and the people in Judea usually they ignored people from Galilee, not entirely inteiramente. Então, now here's a map for driving from Jerusalem to Tiberias, which was a Roman emperor, by the way, Tiberius, and they named the city after the Emperador de Roma. So it's not a straight line. It is very difficult to drive to Tiberias. Not difficult, it just takes time. Well, how far is it, Pedro? From Jerusalem, we find here, it is 121 kilometers from Jerusalem. Now, how long does it take to get there? It takes about 2 hours and 30 minutes. There are no tolls between Jerusalem and Tiberias. So it's not, you don't have to pay extra money to go to Tiberias. Remember, toll is pedágio. There are no pedágios. There are no tolls to pay. So for me to drive from Jerusalem, it's 2 hours and 30 minutes. Anytime. Now, what happened in Galilee in the Bible? Well, Jesus' first miracle was performed there. That's where Jesus turned water into wine. And then Jesus' last miracle was performed there. Last miracle on earth, at least. Pelo menos. So Jesus' first and his last miracle was performed in Galilee. And it's here in John 21. So now what is the difference between in and into? Now, Jesus turned water into wine. So in is position. Position. It's always position. And then to is the direction of the action. I'm going to the mall. I'm going to somebody is going to give 1,000,000 reais to Pedro. So to is the direction of the action. Into, now something has moved or changed, and now it is in a new place or condition. So the water now was changed into wine. It is a new condition. And here's an example. My wife put the money into her purse. So purse is bolso. Bolsa. Purse is bolsa. So I will never see this money again. My wife put the money into her purse before she went to the mall. All right. And she drove the car into the lake. I forgot to put this in there too. Lake is Largo. So she drove the car into the lake. You have Sea of Galilee, Mar, and Lake would be Largo. In American English, we don't say into very often. It is not correct in the American English because there is a change of position or condition. So I'm going to put my phone tecnicamente, into my pocket, meu bolso. So where is my phone? My phone is in my pocket. My phone is in my pocket, posição. But into is the action, put into. It usually modifies the verb as well, also. So a little confusing. In and into, on, onto. It is not common in American English, but we do say it with some phrasal verbs. Então, verse number 2. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 more of his disciples were together. Now, twin means gêmeo, and so does Thomas. In the NEVE, it says didymus. That means also twin in Greek. So all these words, Thomas, didymus, and twin, they're all the same words. So Zebedee means gift of God. Remember, gift is present. It's a formal present. So it's for an event. So Zebedee means gift of God. And the sons of Zebedee were James and John. James and John were the sons of Zebedee. And then Peter, James, and John were partners. They were socios. They had a business, un negocio. And they were socios. And now, how many disciples did Jesus have? Well, Jesus had many informal disciples. These were the people who traveled. These were we call them wannabes. They want to be a disciple. So they're called wannabes, but they don't have what they need to be a disciple. Now, Jesus had only 12 main disciples. There's that word main again. Main, remember, is principal. 12 main disciples. Now, how to become a disciple? I knew you were going to ask. How do you become a disciple? Well, at the time of Jesus, and actually it hasn't changed. This hasn't changed much. At the time of Jesus, children got a religious education starting at 5 years old. Actually started before, I'm sure before then, for religious families, familias religiosas. So starting at 5 years old, and if a boy was interested, he became a disciple of a rabbi at 13 years old. 13 years old, he became a disciple. So for disciples, status was determined. I'm sorry, for rabbis. For rabbis, status was determined by the number of disciples. The number of disciples. So it wasn't determined by the truth. He had status if he had more disciples, or the most disciples. So it was competitiva, this process, competitivo. Então, now who were the oldest disciples? It was probably Peter and Matthew. Why is that? Well, Peter was married. Now that doesn't mean much because people got married as teenagers, jovens, 15 years old, 14, even 13 for men, 13 years old. 13 years old wasn't common, but they started a family very early. So Peter was married. So maybe he was 16, maybe he was 20, 25, 30. We don't know. He had a wife. That's all we know. So Matthew was a tax collector. Remember, this is a guy who, the verb is colher, the taxes. Ele colheu I can't remember. You pay the government. O governo, vocês pagam o governo. These are taxes. And he collected, colheu. Koia these taxes. It was not an easy job. It was very difficult. Very difficult. I'm going to your house and I'm going to take money from you because Roma wants your money, and also the elite, os governos religiosos no Israel também, eles queriam, eles eram envolvidos. Então, verse 3, Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. Then they said to him, we will go with you. They went out and immediately entered the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Now, they probably hadn't fished for 3 years. Now, this is tempo perfeito passado. Remember, tempo perfeito involves perfect tense, involves a process. And in present perfect, it starts in the past and continues to now. Agora mesmo. 5 segundos no futuro não importa. It doesn't matter what happens later, only to today. So I have lived in Sao Paulo for 9 or 10 years. I don't remember. So, faz tempo. So here's tempo perfeito, até agora presente. Now here also it's in the past. Obviously they're dead now. So they hadn't fished for 3 years. Professionally. Now, why did they go fishing? Well, that's a question nobody can answer. There are many possibilities. Were they hungry? Con fome? Yes, probably. But did they need to make a living? Now here, Jesus is gone. They walked with Jesus for 3 years and now he's gone. So they needed to return to do something. Or did they return to their old life? Jesus is gone. I'm going back to fishing. I'm going back to my old life. We will talk about this later. So that's a difficult question. Now, Peter was the spokesman. Remember from last week, spokesman is porta-voz. Peter was the spokesman. He was also a leader, mais ou menos. And usually people who are more charismatic, and their word charismático, they usually become the leaders, the managers. They are qualified, but usually many times they are not qualified. But remember, well, we'll look at this in a little bit. Pedro was a leader, probably because he was the oldest and because of his personality, I think. Então, verse 4, when the morning came, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. So they did not know. They did not recognize Jesus. They couldn't recognize Jesus. I don't know why, but they couldn't recognize. Maybe because of the fog, neblina. They couldn't see Jesus on the shore. Now here's those words again: sand, beach, shore, and coast. Now sand, is areia. It's the same in English and Portuguese. Now at the beach, same praia. Now shore and coast. Shore is a little more involved than beach. Shore is in Google is costa. Shore is costa, but it's the costa in front of you. It's not the costa of Brazil. So it's only what the boats see in the land. It can be areia, can be trees, can be rocks, pedras, I don't know, but it's just where the water meets the land, terra. And then you have coast. Coast is costa. And you have the coast of Brazil. It's a very long coast. And same in English and Portuguese. Now in verse 5, Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? And in the Portuguese version it said filhos. Filhos. Now this is a funny word. I'm sorry. They answered him no. In Greek, he expected the answer to be no. He expected the answer to be no. And the question is written in the negative form. And in Portuguese, it is like this question. You haven't caught any fish, have you? You haven't caught any fish. In Portuguese, não pegaram peixes. Have you? What is have you? Well, Thursday night class, né. Né. You haven't caught any fish, have you? Vocês não pegaram peixes, né? So it's a negative question. That's the closest, I think, in Portuguese. Ne in English, well, your name is Pedro, isn't it? What is the question? What is the question? Isn't it? Isn't it? What is the answer? Yes, it is, or no, it isn't. So let's look at other examples. You are from Mexico, aren't you? No, I'm not. Your wife went to Bahia, didn't she? No, she didn't. She is here. So the question is, aren't you? Questions are, aren't you and didn't she? So remember those questions I asked my students. You guys all suffered. So I asked the questions. Are you? Do you have? And I want the yes and the no because of this. One reason. And remember, only one negative per phrase of any example. In this case, the only one negative. You haven't caught any fish, have you? So there's only one negative in the question. Haven't. You haven't caught any fish, have you? I could say, you have caught some fish, haven't you? It's another question. So I'm expecting the answer to be yes. In this case, Jesus is esperando, que he is expecting the disciples to say no, and he was correct. No, we haven't is the answer. The positive answer, obviously, is yes, we have, but he knew that. Now, children, do you have any fish? Jesus called them children. Children. It's a strange word in Greek, and maybe in Portuguese, jovem is best. It can mean children, crianças, but here in the Portuguese said filhos. It's more like crianças or jovens. Crianças or jovens. They can be other people's children. So here he's calling them jovens. And disciples, remember, disciples started at 13 years old. Maybe his disciples were teenagers. Now, teenagers, I didn't put on the list. Maybe we'll look at that more next week, but teenagers are 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So but between these ages, 13 and 19, they were they are teenagers. And maybe his disciples were 13 years old. Well, after 3 years now, they're 16. 16 years old, maybe. Maybe Jesus was talking to teenagers, jovens. And maybe that's why they couldn't understand. Maybe that's why they couldn't understand. Não conseguiram entender many things because they were teenagers. And maybe that's why they denied Jesus. Eles negaram Jesus. Remember, we have an advantage. Advantage is not on the list, I don't believe. Advantage is vantagem. Nós temos uma vantagem. We have an advantage. What is that? We have their stories. It's called the Bible, a Biblia. We have their stories. Então, they were living history. They couldn't read the Bible. Oh, what's going to happen in the book of Acts? I don't know. I haven't written the book yet, Luke said. So They were living history and then writing about it later. They wrote about the history in the Bible. So we have their stories. Então, in verse 6, he said to them, throw the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they threw it, and now they were not able to draw it in because of the abundance of fish. So he said to them, joga rede do lado direito do barco. So throw the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they threw it, and now they were not able. They were not able. Here's that word capaz, ou conseguir. I prefer capaz, to draw it in. So here, in this case, they were pulling the fish in the boat because of the abundance of fish. Now, Pedro, what happened to into? They draw it into the boat. That is correct. Into the boat, but there's no boat here. Remember, alguns or algumas is always some in English. Qualquer, quaisquer is always any. Always any. Some, alguns, algumas, any is qualquer, quaisquer. And then haul the net in. Haul the net. Where's into? There's no into, like you said, Pedro. Well, we don't need it. In, where is in? It is in the boat, no barco. So we didn't need into because we understand the boat. So in this case, we use in, draw it in. Remember, put on and take off. You put on your shoes where? You put on your feet. But we don't need to say your feet. We just say put on. And then tirar is take off. Take off your shoes. Where? From your feet. So put on your feet and take off from your feet. So, but we don't need anything else. So in here we can't say, and now they were not able to draw it into because of the abundance of fish. Abundancia dos peixes. So they were not able to draw it in. It is only position and not direction because we don't have a boat. It is understood. Entendido. So boat is understood here. Então, the Sea of Galilee at the time of Jesus, Peter, James, and John, they were probably not poor. Why is that? Well, they had people working for them. So people worked for Peter, James, and John. And some fish from Galilee ended up in Rome, and including the emperor, emperador. There were some fish in Galilee that they sent to Rome. It was very, very, very popular. Not popular. It was popular for the rich people. It cost money to get the fish there. Então, now for some, it was a profitable business. There's the word able. Able. Profit, they were able to make a profit. Profit is lucro. So it was a profitable business. And in English, we have able and able with E-B-L-E-E. And we will look at this in the future. Responsible, E-B-L-E-E. So we have two options like Portuguese, hábil, evil. So here it's profitable. They were able, capaz, para fazer ganhar lucro. So it was a profitable business for some. We don't know. And then in verse 7, then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." Finally, after 3 years of preparation, Peter still couldn't see Jesus after 3 years, physically or spiritually. He struggled the entire time with Jesus. He struggled. Eli luto, not MEMEA, but he struggled. He had difficulty the entire time with Jesus. And all 3 years was a struggle. Uma luta for Pedro, for Peter. And by the way, in boxing, lutas are called matches or fights. So in boxing, box. And also, by the way, this is why I teach English. Here's a picture of Mike Tyson. I did not want to be this guy on the right. So this is why I teach English. Now, among Mike Tyson's quotes, citações from Mike Tyson, he said many things that were very good. And some of them were obvious, like this one, I love to hit people. I think that's obvious, né? Isn't it? That is obvious, isn't it? So he also said, everybody has a plan. Now, this is very good. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Até alguém socar or ficar socado, they get punched in the face, like Mike Tyson did in the picture, until they get punched in the face. Oh, doi. Everybody has a plan. Strategia. Strategy. Everybody has a plan, a strategy, and then everything disappears. Your plan is vai embora. You don't have a plan anymore. Now, coronavirus has punched everybody in the face. We all had plans. We all had lives and things we did, and coronavirus now has punched everybody. Socou todo mundo no rosto. Coronavirus has punched everybody in the face. And everything now depends on preparation. Everything preparation in the past. Not just planning. Planning is good, but after somebody punches you in the face, everything depends on training. Treinamento, preparação, preparation. Então, what about Peter? What about Peter? Well, he didn't have a plan, and he wasn't prepared. Unfortunately. Sorry I didn't put the brackets there, but he wasn't prepared, and he didn't have a plan. Jesus punched Peter in the face many times, figuratively. Maybe not punched, but he punched Peter in the face figuratively, figurativamente, over a period of 3 years. Now remember, over there, it can be a distance or a time. Over a period of 3 years. And remember, we have his story to learn from. We have his story. Peter's living history. Well, and wars and battles. I have mentioned this in the past, but wars and battles with other religions, they fight the battles and hope they win the war. But with Jesus, we win the war. We win the war. That's the easy part, really. And then we learn how to fight the battles, because it can be many years. And sometimes life punches us in the face, worse than Mike Tyson, especially today. We know people who have the coronavirus. Maybe they died. We don't know. But everything depends on the preparation that we start today. Are we prepared for the dificuldades in life? Peter wasn't. And we're going to look at him again soon. This is spiritual maturity. And we will look at this in the next 2 weeks, the spiritual maturity. And it just takes time. It takes time. It is not something that you can say, I'm going to change things. But we will look at this at least the next 2 weeks, the spiritual maturity, maturidade. Are you prepared? Are you prepared? There are many circumstances, circunstancias in our lives, many things that are not good. Can be death, can be divorce, can be financial problems, problemas financiais, financiais. Well, there can be any kinds of problems, family problems, but are you prepared? And this is a question we will look at in the next 2 weeks again. Então, this is not the end of the story for Peter. We will look at the rest of chapter 21 in next week. So interesting chapter, this chapter. Então, next week, as I mentioned, we will look at Peter again. So tonight we're going to stop here. So it's a little shorter than last week, but this is a good background, fundo for Peter. We need to understand his life. It's very interesting, and there are some things that are very different than we believed. We learned some things, and we're going to find out, vamos descubrir, very different than what we learned. So, alrighty, guys, we'll stop here tonight, and I will see you guys next Sunday at 9 o'clock. Very good. Have a good night, everybody. Sleep well.